Tell them about the time we faced Doom.
All right. Well, as I remember.
Welcome to the Marvel Evolution Show with myself, Andy Stead.
And I'm Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
And you may have seen that we have got a new intro. We have got a new name. We've got a new focus, I guess. We're going to diversify a little bit. So we've gone for a bit of a rebranding. We're going down a slightly new route, but still with the same essence. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But before we get started, Jarian, how are you?
Doing pretty good, just going through, getting the stuff done. And, it's actually nice here today. It's been nice this weekend. It's supposed to be nice tomorrow. So been doing a lot outside.
Lovely. Nice to get outside. Alex, how are you?
Good. Been a little bit disappointed today. Bought a new Funko and broke it, like I was telling you guys before the show. So a little bit disappointed in that, but it happens, I guess.
And is this another reason to just sort of be an inbox collector?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking about this earlier, and I was like, man, I'm really like cursing all these people that like tell me to take these things out of the boxes, but like at the same time, like I do like to take some of them out of the boxes. Like it's not like I have like hundreds of them out of the boxes. I've maybe got like 60 of them out of the box, so it's like, I don't know. It's not really a lot, I guess. So, but it's just weird. It's the second one with these stands where they're like floating. That they tip over and the stand just breaks right off the back of it. And I'm like, why does this keep happening? Like,
that I think there's a weak point there. My T'Challa as Star-Lord, or as my T'Challa as Star-Lord done that. It just fell over once. Just a normal fall. It didn't fall off a shelf. It just sort of fell over onto the shelf and it broke straight away. Mm-hmm. And then it's the tiniest little bit of plastic to try and fit back together.
Yeah,
but as you say, these things happen sometimes, and you got to think of all the other times that things have fallen over. And Funko's like dominoes, aren't they? Like once one falls over, they all start falling over, and it's like
it's like trying to catch them all.
I feel. Do you ever feel like Spider when you're trying to catch him? Do you feel like Spider-Man, like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in that scene in the canteen at school where he's trying to catch all the things on the tray?
Yeah, because as they're falling, I'm like, all right, which ones are the ones that are going to break and which ones aren't? And like, I'm trying to grab the ones that aren't going to, that are going to be like broken when the stand hits the ground or something, but yeah.
Which one can you catch with your foot? Which one?
Yeah.
Which one can
the blow?
Yeah. Which one can you try and sort of hump into the shelf or something to try and catch it in your belly or something? Yeah. That's great. I know that somebody else is. So I'm going to guess that's Jamie. My T'Challa did the same.
Yeah.
As always, guys, if you're listening live, if you're watching live and you want to chirp in on the conversation, please do chuck us a message. Give us your initials as well so we know who's talking. But yeah, so let's before we get. Oh, go on, Joe. Quick.
Also, too, if you're watching on Twitter, because we're getting more and more people watching on Twitter, we can't see the chat. So if you want to be involved, head over to Twitch or YouTube or Trovo, or come and join our Facebook group.
or anywhere, almost by the sounds of it. So yeah, let's go in and talk about this name change. So we discussed it, didn't we, a little while ago? Do we want to just stick to Marvel news? We've had a couple of takeover weekends. We had the DC takeover weekend where we had Paul join us from DC World. We had our Star Wars takeover weekend where we had Becca join us from Tarkin's Top Shelf. And we quite like diversifying. We've got interest in lots of different fandoms. Obviously, we love Marvel. We will continue to love Marvel and we'll talk about that. But there's lots of different stuff out there that we can talk about. And this rebranding that we've decided to go down, Comics Evolved, is something that we spoke about. And I think, Alex, you said it, didn't you? Most of these things have come from comics at one point.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's like, comics have been kind of this revolving door of a lot of characters that in a lot of media, characters end up in comics in some way. I mean, there's a comic of Batman fighting the Predator, Back to the Future have comics, Rick and Morty have comics. I mean, just different various things across media often end up in comic books, or at least referenced in comic books. So, it's funny how much, I guess, is in comics that people don't realize actually is.
And that's exactly what the name is saying, isn't it? The name is saying that these things, we've evolved. Comics evolved. They evolve into cartoons. They evolve into TV shows. They evolve into movies. They evolve into other forms of art, and other things go from those forms of art into comics as well. So there's lots of movement between the two, or between the mediums. So that's where this rebranding's come from, and we're going to be doing some work on the show on the banners and stuff, aren't we, Jaren? And we've got some new intros coming and some new graphics and a new page as well that's going to be started.
Yeah, that's coming soon.
I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah, so the page is going to be back up. Actually, a new page. So the old page that was taken down will be gone, and we'll have a new page. And you notice that we have no text on the show today. I took everything off just to keep it clean, and we'll have all that added back once we get everything done with rebranding. That's going to be across, Twitch, Twitter, Trovo, Instagram, all YouTube, all the places. You see YouTube's already been updated with a new name, and everything else will be getting updated this week. So next Sunday's show, we should be all new branding.
Yeah. I mean, we've got lots of Marvel news to get. Well, I said lots of Marvel news. We've got some Marvel news to get through this week. We're going to diversify into a couple of other bits this week, but next week's going to be the real start of our new sort of Comics Evolved format. I know Alex has got a couple of little bits that he's looking at maybe bringing up, some new little videos, and we've got some features on the page that we're hoping to bring you guys. And obviously the groups are all going to stay the same. We're still going to have our Marvel focus group. We're still going to have our DC focus group and our Star Wars focus group. But we're going to open some of our channels to being allowed to talk about lots more stuff.
Also, too, we're going to have another takeover weekend. We always talk about the boys weekend, so probably when the new season starts, we should probably do that boys takeover weekend then.
Yeah, sure. I reckon if we do a nice takeover weekend before that, and then we can talk about that series every week as it comes out.
Yep.
Lovely.
I do have something. I did break something, though. So remember I told you before I was not going to buy any more Funkos?
Yes.
I broke down and bought a couple things. So the first one I bought Moon Girl. I couldn't resist that one. And then I also got
the Devil Dinosaur
Dude, as well.
That one is sweet.
Yeah. So it's pretty good size. And for the size comparison here,
yeah,
you can see how big it is. Yeah. And then I bought one more thing, too. Is I bought the popcorn helmet
nice
from AMC from Quantumania. I'm not gonna put popcorn in it. This thing holds, I think it's like 100 and something ounces of popcorn, 130 ounces of popcorn, which I'm not gonna put popcorn in it. The cool thing was that the eyes light up, so
that's cool.
That's gonna go on the shelf behind me once I get all my stuff in my office rearranged, and I want to redecorate with all the Lego stuff too as well. So you'll see that in the background at some point.
That's awesome.
Brilliant. I haven't bought any new stuff this week. I've been too busy to buy new stuff this week, to be totally honest. But I've been reading a little bit more of Reckoning War, which is one of the latest stories that Marvel brought out, and it's an interesting story. It's all about the Watchers. I don't know, have either of you read it?
Mm-mm.
So it's about the Watchers and some of their technology that has been used by these people called the Reckoning. And they've got hold of the Watchers, the ancient Watcher technology, and they're sort of laying waste to the galaxy all at once. Reed gets the knowledge of the Watchers, which is really interesting. But yeah, it's quite good, introducing me to sort of some concepts that I've and some places that I've never seen in comics before. I haven't read everything. It's almost impossible to have read everything, so you're always going to pick up on new stuff. But something I did pick up on is how, in this particular moment in time in the comics, how powerful Johnny Storm is. He seems to have got a bit of a power boost, and I think Doom done something to him to sort of almost magnify his power, amplify his power a little bit. But he can't flame off, so he's just always flame on. And he's super powerful in this. So this is quite cool. And it's one of the latest stories as well. And so I was interested to see that, because they brought the Fantastic Four back, didn't they? And brought them back in, renewed their life. So yeah, that's quite it's quite an interesting story at the moment. I'm only about halfway through it, so I've still got lots to read.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's before Judgment Day, because Judgment Day is the latest big event, big crossover event, isn't it? And Reckoning War is just before that. It's like early part of 2022. I think Judgment Day was the latter part of 22. But yeah, it's a good story so far. It's a good story.
I saw that there was a new Cosmic Ghost Rider story coming out too, as well. And what I was reading, it seems like Frank Castle will be fighting another version of himself as Cosmic Ghost Rider. So that'll be interesting to see how that would be.
It will be.
I don't know why when you said Cosmic Ghost Rider, Space Unicorn jumped in my head. I don't know why. The Space Unicorn, that whole song. I don't know why. Sorry.
I tell you what else I've been watching as well. If nobody has been watching that, The Last of Us. If you up with The Last of Us,
I haven't watched it yet. I've heard about it, and I heard they show part of Kansas City where I live, where kind of an abandoned Kansas City screenshot thing. So I gotta check it out and see what that's all about.
That must be really interesting to see your own city as an abandoned city and something like that. Yeah.
Yesterday we were playing disc golf with my brother-in-law, and we were driving through downtown, and he goes, they were talking about that in the car, and he goes, it was shot right down there in the West Bottoms. The West Bottoms is a part of downtown Kansas City where like the old Kemper Arena is, the train yards and that kind of stuff, all the haunted houses are, and they shot all that stuff down there when they did that episode.
Wow.
So.
Having said that, speaking about places that have been depicted like that on film or on screen, I'm guessing, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, Walking Dead can't be too far. Atlanta is not too far. I mean, I say not too far in America's terms, not too far. Is that far from where you are?
It's like 6 hours away from
me. Oh, is it really?
The funny thing is, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the TV show Outer Banks on Netflix.
Yep.
I know
that's actually supposed to take place right where I live at, in this entire area. Everything in the show is completely made up. They'll be like, oh, we're in the cut right now. There is nothing called the cut here. And they talk about taking a ferry from here to Chapel Hill, which is where the Tar Heels are supposed to be. There is no ferry. There's
not even water.
yeah. So it's one of those things where it's just TV shows do that little thing. But Iron Man 3 was filmed here. At our
the docks, right?
Yeah. Swamp Thing was filmed here for DC at one of our big lakes, I guess. Here it's called Greenfield Lake. It literally looks like the perfect place for Swamp Thing. It's just a swampy area, so but yeah, it's crazy. A lot of that stuff just goes on and you don't really realize it, in the background.
We had apparently a couple of weeks ago, Tom Cruise was down the road from us filming something. I mean, I say apparently he was. But yeah, God knows what he was filming. But like you say, it happens and you don't know that it's happening.
I used to work in the building that was literally 100 feet from where they filmed that scene where Tony Stark comes with all the people out of Air Force One and saves them before they go in the water, where they drop them in the water.
They're all monkeys.
That was done in our river here.
Nice.
So yeah.
Very cool. But yeah, Last of Us. It's very good. Apparently, it's almost. I mean, I don't know anything about the game. I never played the game, but a friend of mine has played the game, hasn't watched the show, told me about the beginning of the game, and I said that is almost identical to the show. So they're being very, very true to the game. So from what I understand, but the show is very good. Pedro Pascal is very good, and the young girl is excellent. And episode 3. Is possibly one of the best episodes of TV I've watched of anything for a long time.
Better than The Walking Dead.
Again, I suppose better. Better. It's not the same. It's not. And do you know what? Actually, bringing up Walking Dead, it's not really a zombie show. I mean, they're not zombies anyway. They're they kind of are, but they're not zombies like that. But it's not really a zombie show. It's not really about the zombies at all.
I was having this discussion with somebody today where I literally was talking about this show, and I was literally like, it's a zombie show. And I was like, well, it's literally not a zombie show, but they're basically zombies. And they're like, yeah, I know what you mean. And I was like, yeah.
But they're not really in it.
It's different.
Yeah, they're not really in it very much. I mean, in that episode 3, that third episode, the one that I'm saying is very good. I don't think you see any at all. But it's very good. It's about the people.
Which, I mean, like, I feel like that was like the ultimate point about The Walking Dead, which was like the zombies were like the first wave of the problem. The second problem were like the factions that formed because of the zombies, you know, of people. Sure. And it's the real problem is how humanity deals, not with the zombies, but with humanity.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's only so much of that you can do, which is why it kind of needed to end when it ended. Otherwise, they're just repeating the same thing over and over again. You're like, oh, here's a new group, and they're evil as well, and we're going to.
But then they spun it off so many times, you know.
Yeah, hopefully these spin-offs can be something a little bit different. But
are they still going?
They're starting. They're starting. I mean, they got the one spin-off of Fear the Walking Dead, and then we've got the Rick and Michonne show coming up. There's a Daryl show, and then a Maggie and Negan where they go to New York City, which should be different as well. Because to be fair, like, you know, there's a common observation about Walking Dead is that they spend a lot of time walking around the woods. They spend all of their time in the woods, just sort of, you know, running into zombies in the woods, and they're never really in an urban setting. And I mean, me personally, I love that kind of urban setting. That's why I think I'm enjoying The Last of Us, because a lot of that up until this point has been in an urban setting, and it's really cool seeing those cities, you know, sort of made post-apocalyptic. But yeah, The Walking Dead spent loads of time in the woods, when you're like, well, it could be anywhere, you know.
Well, I mean, I think the thought process there is the last place that you want to be in the zombie apocalypse is in a densely populated area where there's going to be tons of zombies. You know, out in the middle of the woods, there's really not that many. So, like season 2, where they go to the prison or whatever it was in The Walking Dead, you know, or season 3, whichever season that was kind of like, you know, they were secluded, but they still had some zombies, but it wasn't as many as like going to like Atlanta. And all the zombies that were in Atlanta, you know.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, Last of Us, worth a watch. Should we move on to with some Marvel comic news?
Yeah, a couple of things from the chat here. Looks like Jimmy Smith said Tetris was filmed here during lockdown. I think it releases soon. So yeah,
that's looking really interesting.
Yeah, that looks pretty good. Looks like we have a fun fact here. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, before we get to the fun fact, I was just going to say, I was expecting Tetris to be a little. Do you remember Battleships? The Battleships movie?
Yeah.
With the big things that kept coming down. When I first heard Tetris was going to be a movie, that's kind of what I had in my head.
Same.
What it was going to be. And then when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh, this is absolutely nothing like what I thought it was going to be. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing that, actually. Carry on.
So, fun fact here from the chat from Lee. He says the goo in Ant-Man 3 is an old Native American ceremony. It's turd and shrooms. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to read more about that.
Drink the goo.
Yeah. Drink the goo, Daddy.
Just do it.
Yeah.
What have we got news-wise, Jorian?
Yeah. So, top of the news here. There's been some back and forth about whether Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man will return or not. Either even with speculation of that lookalike person who could play him, like in Secret Wars during Kang Dynasty or whatever. You know, and I still maintain if they bring Iron Man back, you know, just have him the face mask on, don't need to show his face, you know, any of that kind of stuff. But Steven Broussard, the producer from Marvel, has addressed this. He says, well, I think one of the meta narratives of Phase 4 was about new characters. It was about new people stepping into mantles. If you look at it, like Cassie Lang in Quantumania, getting a suit, and Kate Bishop in Hawkeye, new characters being introduced like Jack in Werewolf by Night. After these first 10 years of Marvel storytelling, torches are being passed, like with Robert Downey Jr. no longer being on the table and stuff like that. So it was kind of like a new generation stepping to the forefront, which again has always happened in the comics. So
that was his way of saying that he's not coming back, or he's just not here at the moment, or
it sounds like it. So
I mean, I think it would be kind of cool. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him, but Iron Man finds out at one point that he actually has a brother named Arno Stark. And I think it'd be kind of cool to just find out that there's maybe a long lost Stark out there somewhere, maybe, or maybe Tony across the multiverse isn't always Tony. Maybe Arno is, you know, Tony in another universe or something.
Yep.
Like that. Be kind of a cool spin to put on things.
And maybe that could look like that we saw reported, but maybe that's Arno. They'll be in the MCU, not Tony. So
I still always like the idea. If anybody was clever enough and forward thinking enough to upload their consciousness to an AI, it was Tony Stark.
Well, and Jarvis was always interacting with him since like 2008 and before that point too. So like, you know, like it was always like reading him, picking up how to interact with him, so we'd know how he would be.
So there's an episode of Black Mirror where that happens with I think it's Domhnall Gleeson in it, and it might be Emily Blunt in it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's definitely Domhnall Gleeson, and he dies. But basically, the wife, his wife. Look, go on.
This one, Haley Atwell.
Is it Haley Atwell? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I think
it's one Haley Atwell. Yeah, I think it's the episode you're talking about. Go ahead.
Right, it's definitely Domhnall Gleeson. I know that for a fact, but it's I can't remember who the female was in it. But so the wife goes on and finds like a website where exactly what you just said there, Alex. It reads what you've typed online, like what you've typed on social media, or what you've sort of all of the stuff about you, and then you can text it, and it texts back as the deceased person based on their habits on social media and the way that they text and the little mannerisms that they use. Yeah. And then it says, and then it keeps getting in contact with her and says, oh, would you like to upgrade to our next level package? And then the next level package is like, it will like play the voice. So it leaves like voice notes and things like this. And then the next level package is it makes a face. So it makes like an AI face, and it can talk to you, and it can, and then so there's a sweet spot right in the program where it says, oh, I can't answer that question. I haven't been programmed to answer that question. And then it goes on really silly where basically she turns up and he turns up. He's like an android, and it's a bit weird. But my point is that, you know, that could happen. That Tony could have done that. He could have uploaded his memory into a bank somewhere. And I think if we got Tony Stark back, I think that's the only way that I'd be happy with having him back. Otherwise, his death would be. That's my dog, if you couldn't hear him bark. He's going to bark crazy now. So I'll let somebody else talk while you go. But yeah, he was. That's the only way I think I'd be happy with it.
Which I think it's funny because we've seen Ultron in the MCU actually like say things that Tony Stark would say, like that one line where he's like, you know, sometimes to make an omelet you have to crack a few eggs or whatever.
Or the rich comment line. Yeah.
And Tony's literally like, "Ooh, he beat me to it by like 2 seconds or whatever," because it's like that Ultron is like partly Tony Stark. It's got part of his personality, sort of kind of in it. So, like, I mean, you could very well, like, I feel like we've already sort of seen that on screen a little bit, you know? So maybe, like, that wouldn't be too far to say that maybe we could see something like that down the road with Tony Stark just being an AI.
Well, there's even that rumor I posted to the group about where it looked like when he was addressing Morgan at the end of Endgame, and he turned to look at her and said, "I love you 3000," you know, type thing, that he was already AI then. And that's how he was addressing her directly. And, you know, we talked about before, he could be Riri's AI like in the comics, come back as that. You know, if they get Morgan involved in the future, he could come back as Morgan's AI. Maybe she's the replacement. You know, one of these universes, it's Morgan Stark, his daughter was a genius, and not as much him. So there's all kinds of ways they could do this.
I just want to see the AI that they think is Tony Stark turn out to be Ultron. And just be like, one day, just like go red and be like, "Well, congratulations. Thank you for all your help. Now you've completed my plan and set my plan in motion. You have now helped Ultron." And
that's good.
Yeah, and everybody be like, "What?" And it would be so perfect if that was like for something to involve with, I don't know, the Young Avengers or something like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Jonathan Majors also addressed about Tony Stark as well. "I would love to be across from him on screen to see how our philosophies, acting-wise, character-wise, just personality match up. You know, I find him to be such a fascinating artist, which is why Iron Man is so fascinating. His portrayal of Iron Man is so fascinating, and he represents a very clear worldview and energy of the Avengers. And I think Kang represents a different era. It'd be really interesting to see those two kind of come together and have a bit of a conversation." So, go ahead, Alex. before I move on.
I was just gonna say it's really interesting for me to think about like all the technology that we will eventually find out in the MCU that this, I guess, Kang and his variants have built on from the past that we've already seen from Stark Industries and stuff like that. So I feel like there's got to be ties to things like maybe even Reed Richards in the past on technology, you know.
Zola even.
Yeah, I mean, like, feel like he's got little ties everywhere across, you know, all of history. So,
and with the post credit scene in Quantumania, they do introduce Victor Timely, who could have family across different generations doing the same thing. We still don't know who that special buyer in Ant-Man and the Wasp was buying for and where he was getting stuff from. So there's still some mystery out there about some of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to see some amazing live action retcon going on over the next sort of year or two. You know, we're gonna see these. Excuse me. We're going to see these things pop up in places that we've seen. You know, in scenes that we've seen, and we're like, okay, so that they were involved in that, were they?
Or just even like a flashback story, like when they did the Winter Soldier, about how he intervened over the years to course correct things when Zola was telling that story. A similar story like that told by a Kang variant.
With Kang, yes.
Yeah. So that'd be pretty cool to see.
That would be.
Nova news. Peyton Reed wants to direct the project, he said. But also, too, I told you about last week on our news that they kind of leaked that Nova is in development as a Disney Plus project based on how they're changing things with Disney Plus. There's another rumor here as well. Tom Holland will be one of the lead Avengers in Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, with Spider-Man 4 coming out in between. Now, there's been a lot of chatter that they're kind of fast-tracking Spider-Man 4 and Doctor Strange 3 to be out before Secret Wars. So it sounds like they will be big parts of this saga, for the multiverse saga, before we get to Secret Wars.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, did you have any more news on Nova, or was it just that?
There was just that. There was two things. I thought it looks like I combined those together in my notes, so that was it for Nova. Okay. But it looks like he's interested to direct the project. So
I'm surprised. We were talking the other day, weren't we, about the amount of content that's been released and the amount of things that have got a show or have been rumored to have had a show or started production or been thought about. And to still not have Nova, I think at this stage is like, with all these other things coming out, you're like, what's going on? Like, when are we going to get Nova? Like this, surely we should have had Nova by now.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, they set up the perfect opportunity with the fall of Xandar too, with Thanos going, and they were like, oh, we're not even going to show you how he got the Power Stone. So I mean, like, they could easily make that a very like short 45-minute special presentation, like have like one Nova be like, I'm gonna avenge us, and then go to only find out Thanos has already been killed, and then just be like on a mission, like.
I mean, it's actually been 10 years now, hasn't it, since the first Guardians. Guardians 1 was 2012. It's been 10 years that they've been teasing us Nova for 10 years.
And they could even, right here, I was ready to say this. I've been saying this before. A tease at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. They could have shown like a screen cap of him, or just like the second post credit scene of just him like glowing or something like that, and that's it, or his helmet or his eyes or something, and then give us that same project special presentation of the destruction of Xandar, him becoming Nova, that kind of stuff, and then we get him showing up somewhere else, because we know at the end of Guardians there's going to be a new Guardians team. He could be on that potentially, depending on which Nova they go with, Rick Ryder or Samuel Alexander. But if he goes to the Guardians team, though, because I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Warlock ends up on the new Guardians team as well. Is that too heavy, overpowered people on the same team to have both Nova and Adam Warlock on the same Guardians team?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, I feel like Adam Warlock's going to end up in this situation, and I hate to say it like this, but like kind of like the Black Bolt and Inhuman situation, where at the end of this movie, Adam Warlock's going to be still kind of like that shocked little child, kind of just like doesn't really understand what's going on, and he's just going to fly off in disappear.
I can see that too.
and he's just gonna just come back in the middle of something, and everybody's gonna like have almost forgotten about Adam Warlock for a little while, and then he'll just make his reappearance.
It'll be like that Captain Marvel moment in the in-game final battle where, you know, something's in the atmosphere, you know, it'll be something like that. I guarantee during like Secret Wars or Kang Dynasty, something like that will happen where he just shows up, kicks some butt, and helps save the day probably.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. Just going back to the Nova thing, and talking about the destruction of Xandar. We've spoken about it quite a lot, haven't we? Like those flashback scenes, and I know we harp on about it all the time. But one of the best things about the movie, or Wolverine Origins, was that opening credit scene. And to be fair, there's been a few movies that have done good opening credit scenes, and that's kind of a swear word when Jarians were out. But Black Widow had a great opening credit scene, and or scenes, sequence, let's call it. And I feel that maybe the destruction of Xandar, because do we really need to see a big, long, drawn out battle? Maybe, but I think a good sort of 5 minutes at the beginning would be a good way to bring that in. Alex, you definitely want to say so. I can see it in your face.
Well, no, I think it's weird because it's like we got teased about Adam Warlock like a lot later than we did Nova, but yet we're getting Adam Warlock before we're getting Nova. Like, and so it's like one of those things where it's like, yeah, we don't need to see Xandar like get played out on screen, like where it's being destroyed, but like you could totally see like a burned down, like destroyed Xandar, like one of them like climb out of the rubble, go looking, realize that he's the last of the Nova, goes and gets like, the power of the Nova, and then goes off on his mission. And this could be like just like an origin story, plain and simple. Like we don't need anything too crazy,
Or like here from the chat, John C. Reilly crashing on Earth, John C. Reilly crashing anywhere, right? We could just see him trying. Maybe his family gets killed in the conflict with Thanos, and we see him trying to escaping. His family gets killed during the escape plan. He gets out by himself. He crashes somewhere, and then that gave me the post-credit scene for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, something like that.
What's the helmet called? Is it the world mind? Isn't it? I'm sure the helmet is the world mind in the Nova helmet. It's called the world mind. I'm sure of it. I'm gonna find it out because I want to make sure that I'm right.
All right, let me go back to the rumor now. Are we still on Nova? Let me go back to that rumor. So I kind of skipped that over fast, but yeah, the rumor is that Tom Holland will be one of the lead Avengers featured in Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, with Spider-Man 4 coming out in between. And like I said, there's been a lot of chatter that they're fast-tracking Spider-Man 4 and Doctor Strange 3 to have them big parts of this saga before we get to Secret Wars. So yeah, I have more stuff about Kang Dynasty coming up, but that was in my order of notes there. So
yeah, he's still young, isn't he, Peter? Yeah. Not just in age, but in experience.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether he can lead. Can he lead?
I mean, unless that piece of symbiote that got left over after No Way Home, has a deal to play in this too. Maybe him getting the Venomized suit and him, is a part of that or something. But there's got to be a reason why they're doing some kind of fast track for him being a lead in the Avengers, right? He was also entrusted with everything of Tony Stark's as well. So,
which. I mean, I think it's going to be strange because it's like nobody's going to remember him, so he's going to have to rebuild relationships with everybody that he knew prior. He's going to have to like show everybody that he's got leadership qualities and things like that, So it's like he's kind of starting on fresh footing here. I mean, he's kind of back to square one almost,
Maybe that's why he's a wild card in this situation, because maybe that spell that Doctor Strange did, nobody knows who he is, not even Kang variants across the multiverse. So that could be to their, advantage of no one knowing who he is. There's no way to kind of corrupt him or go after him. Let me see from the chat here. Surely then we'll see him pop up before that then, more than just Spider-Man 4, Daredevil, Deadpool. Yeah, and I won't be surprised if we do see him somewhere else. Last week I think I talked about it. Was it this week out in the notes, or was it last week? 1 second before I say this, because I don't want to get too ahead of myself again.
It was the world mind, by the way, while you're working that one out. Yeah.
So I'll address where he could show up again. I'm not going to talk about it right now because I have something in my notes later on about that. But yeah, Daredevil or Deadpool makes sense too as well. But there's a specific project he's already being talked about showing up in. Mm-hmm. Vision Quest. It sounds like will reportedly begin shooting in 2024. Vivian and Victor Mancha will be included. Remember, Victor Mancha is the son of Ultron, I believe, if I remember correctly, and Vivian is Vision's daughter. So
is he gonna make himself a family?
it sounds like, it also sounds like this is gonna set up the West Coast Avengers too, as well. From what the chatter's been, but yeah, so
maybe some potential Armor Wars connections there. You know,
possibly.
I'm still really interested to see what route they go down with Armor Wars. I really am. I don't know. I don't know if we're calling it right. Is it? I think it's going to adapt. I still don't think they really know what they're going to do with it.
You know what? I wonder if we see a Spider-Man show up in series, because again, he had Edith. He kind of let Edith into the hands of Mysterio, got Edith back. I still wonder what kind of access Peter has to Stark Tech as well. Is there any back doors he still has access to? And he knows of Rhodey. He knows that Rhodey was good friend with Tony. I wonder if we could see Spider-Man show up in Armor Wars.
I think Armor Wars is going to end up kind of relating back to that one line in Iron Man in the very first movie where Obadiah Stane says to Tony, "You tried to rid the world of weapons, and you ended up giving it its best one."
Yep.
And I think that's kind of like the arms race that we're going to end up here with Armor Wars. Of we're going to have like multiple people who now have this technology. I mean, back in Iron Man 2, they were already projecting that it was like 15 years out or something that other countries are going to be like in the realm of making Iron Man tech. And he's like making fun of like, oh yeah, other countries, yeah, and nowhere close for Hammer Tech, but other countries, yeah. And like we're kind of now at that point where like other countries now have alien technology. They now have like other different forms of weapons, and vibranium, has become like a world issue and suddenly known about. Like everybody's making an arms race right now for something.
And also, too, the fallout from Secret Invasion is going to be a play in this, too, as well.
Yeah, 100%, yeah. It's funny you said that, Alex, because I was talking to my family this weekend, just gone. My son done it wasn't a cosplay. He dressed up for work, basically. There, as having a kids' bonanza at the gym that he works at. And he dressed up as Miles Morales from Into the Spider-Verse. And it's a great costume. But anyway, we started talking about cosplays. All right. And I said, I think now, so we was looking at some Iron Man cosplays online, and people are 3D printing these suits. And they look amazing. And just in such a short amount of time. And I mean, 10 years. I mean, 10 years ago, people in cosplaying as Iron Man, you either had one person who might have been way ahead of the curve, or other people that were just making things out of cardboard boxes, where now you're getting these incredible suits. And you can see it. You go to the beach and you see the guys with the water cannon things where they're flying a little bit. And wasn't there the Portuguese cup final or something, the soccer cup final? They flew the ball in. A guy flew the ball in on a hovercraft. And 15 years ago, this stuff didn't even exist. And it's kind of like mirroring what you're saying there, Alex. Like in the MCU, all of these different places have got all this new tech now. So there is a bit of a race going on. And it's almost like reflecting real life now, like people can almost make an Iron Man suit.
Especially with 3D printing, because you can 3D print a lot of stuff. Like there's guys I see on Instagram who make all kinds of stuff, because I was looking for a Taskmaster helmet, and there's some pretty cool ones out there. So I think 3D printing has accelerated a lot of this.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
I mean, there was a guy that I was watching not long ago. He had made like an Iron Man suit, and on his back he had the flight stabilizers, and they would actually move up and down.
Oh, come out.
And it was just like a nice touch, because he would be standing there and they would just, just change and everything, and it's very cool.
Nice. But yeah, so cosplay wars and Armor Wars.
Yeah.
Next project, Loki season 2. Jonathan Majors is set to appear in at least 3 episodes, and we will see a few different variants in this. We already got the hint of Victor Timely in the second post-credit scene for basically a promo of Loki Season 2. We know that in the first post-credits, we did see Mr. Griffon in there, which we saw at the end of Season 1, Quang Enterprises, as well. So I bet he shows up, and then we saw all those other variants in there as well. So I wonder which other one is going to pop up in Loki Season 2.
I feel like Loki season 1, that scene with He Who Remains, kind of left us with like what's going to happen in the future of the MCU, where he talks about like, oh yeah, you know, like if I'm not here, then all my variants come about, which we just saw in the post-credit scene in Ant-Man. And then he's like, you know, first it's like we all come together and we're like, oh, y'all are all great, like I like you, you're fantastic, like da da da, and then they all go to war. And that's where, like, it seems like after Ant-Man, it seems like we're almost moving towards like some sort of war thing. So I don't know if like from the first season 1 Loki, if we're going in like a loop here, where like we're actually playing through the loop that He Who Remains told us about, and we haven't made it to the multiversal war yet, and we're just now getting to the point where the Kangs are about to go at war with one another, because like kind of I guess the shot heard for all the Kangs will be when Kang the Conqueror was like sent to maybe the quantum realm or something, you know, who knows. So maybe when he dies.
I like that idea of that. I like that idea of the loop.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, did you guys see that theory that I posted to the group about Kang from Quantumania? About the one that
he could be the Beyonder.
Yes. Let me find it real quick.
Which, I mean, he did get sucked into that like quantum energy device. So, you know, like, I mean, if it made him like pure quantum energy, I mean, he could very well be like a Beyonder or something, you know?
Yeah. So here's the theory. We got to see a new variant debut, the next MCU with the NS level threat Kang, blah, blah, blah. Hold on. At the end of the movie, we saw Kang pull into the multiverse engine, appearing to have been destroyed, which I don't think he's dead. After that, we saw Ant-Man thinking to himself, we did kill him, right? What if this version of Kang is indeed the version... Stupid Facebook, hold on. Is indeed the version that will become the next big bad? What if he was pulled into the Beyond, and the MCU plans to have him ultimately return as the Beyonder, probably near the end of Kang Dynasty, leading into Secret Wars? A Kang Beyonder who's consumed with vengeance to destroy all the other variants who banished him to the quantum realm and destroy their timelines. Now, this indeed was the plan that the MCU was setting up. I could definitely see a Kang Beyonder being absolutely extremely dangerous, even dangerous enough to introduce the one only Doctor Doom to help the Avengers to ultimately strip him of his newfound powers as the Kang Beyonder.
Why would they not do that? Because they basically just did that with Cross, where they basically just had him shrink and disappear, and you thought that he was dead, only to bring him back, you know, in the third Ant-Man movie. So they could totally just do the same exact thing, where just at the end of this movie, instead of MODOK, you know, MODOK dies, but Kang just basically does the very same thing that happened to Cross in the first Ant-Man.
Why have I only just realised that? You're absolutely right. That's exactly what happens at the end of the first Ant-Man, and it happens again at the end of this third one.
But I wonder, though, I had a similar thought that he's not dead, but they're going to have to pull off the similar situation that Scott had to do and go into that probability storm to get the engine and shrink it back down. They're going to have to go back in there and save this Kang, get him out. You know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, fight alongside him before he double crosses them, and then they have a big showdown with this Kang variant. I think they'll need this Kang variant, the Conqueror one, to defeat everyone else first before he flips the script on them, and that's what Secret Wars is going to be, is basically them fighting this Kang. You know, no Beyonder, but in a Beyonder type role.
Yeah.
No Doom?
I don't know. We'll see. I'm still trying to see how they're going to do Doom. You know, I was always hoping they would have him, you know, show up at the end of Wakanda Forever, and either he was manipulating Namor, or just him being there trying to get Wakanda resources with T'Challa gone type of thing. But yeah, I don't know how they're gonna do Doom now. Is it Fantastic Four? Is it somewhere else? This will be a great place to do it with Secret Wars, but you know, I don't know.
I would hope that they wouldn't put him in Fantastic Four. I feel like Doom has earned enough credit now that he can now be separate from them, and let's get something refreshing and put him in something else. But I feel like if they don't put him as like a major spot in like a project like Secret Wars or something, and they kind of halfway, like kind of partially shove him in there a little bit, I feel like that would be like a disservice to Doom. So like I would kind of want him to either play like a big role or not, almost, you know?
I think it would almost be a disservice to the Secret Wars title as well. To be totally honest, it needs him. But yeah, I agree. I think he's, like you said, I think he's earned his right to be not necessarily connected to the Fantastic Four.
Like, for example, we saw in Moon Knight, we saw him wake up in the Alps. They didn't say which Alps. Those could be the Bavarian Alps. And that could have been Doom's castle right there that we saw in the background that they never touched on. And maybe Doom comes in through Moon Knight as a way to show him come in and then still have him in Secret Wars. But yeah, do not tie him to Fantastic Four coming in. Use Psycho Man, Puppet Master, Negative Zone, those guys. But yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, we're also getting the Agatha show. Who knows? I mean, Doom's mother was a witch. Maybe she came across Agatha at some point in time. I mean, like, they've got all these little kind of tiny connections that they could start laying the breadcrumbs with for Doom in the MCU. So I think it would be really interesting to see what they do in the future.
All right, to keep things on track, I think we're like, 45 minutes in now, and I got more news, so I'll keep rolling here. Wonder Man news. There's a rumor that Fear the Walking Dead and Lovecraft Country star Demetrius Grosse is in talks to take on the iconic villainous mantle of Eric Williams' Grim Reaper. So it looks like they're, which makes sense of him being similar background as Yaya, because they're brothers obviously and so forth. So don't want to do what they did in Fantastic Four, the second remake, and confuse people. So yeah, that's interesting. Also, too, Lauren Glazer has joined the cast as well. Stella Meggy will direct multiple episodes of the series. The last rumor about the casting is that Werner Herzog is in talks to join as well. And if you know him, he's in The Mandalorian. I want the child. That dude.
Yeah,
he's in talks to join the cast as well. Also, too. There's a potential log line for this series also. Based on the character of Wonder Man, one of Marvel's oldest characters, first introduced in 1964 in the pages of Avengers #9, known as Simon Williams, a celebrity actor and stuntman. In a nutshell, it's a story of two actors struggling to make it in Hollywood of the MCU, asking the big question, what does Hollywood look like in a world where superheroes are real? And the other person we're talking about is, of course, Trevor. Is the other actor in this, because he's going to be in the series as well.
Trevor from Iron Man 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
And from Shang-Chi.
Slattery.
Yeah, Trevor Slattery. Yep. So he'll be a big part of this show, too. It seems like those Wonder Man and Simon/Trevor will be friends in this series, and he'll be a big staple in the series as well.
I wonder what kind of style they're going to go with.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe like
sort of style of show, like how much comedy will be in there, will there be any satire in there, will it be I don't know.
Bob Odenkirk's supposed to be in this, right?
There's been rumors about it, but nothing confirmed yet.
I mean, I'm sure if he's in it, I'm sure there's probably going to be like a sarcastic comedic kind of style to it,
It also makes you wonder with him being with Trevor, is this Trevor before Iron Man 3, before he got sent over in Shang-Chi over into Asia? Because if so, if they're going to flashbacks, we may see some part of the show being set in the Infinity Saga, depending on when he crosses paths with Trevor Slattery.
What happened to him after Shang-Chi? Where did he go?
That's a good question. He was part of the team there, and he was still in the ancient city there at the end. I don't think in the post credits we saw anything more of that. What happened to him? Unless he makes his way back to Hollywood and it's present day Hollywood. But I wonder if part of the series will be in the past.
Because part of his punishment with the 10 rings was because he was mocking the Mandarin or whatever. So that was his only reason of being there. So
yep, he was his jester basically.
Yeah.
Moving on. Marvel schedule update. Reportedly, Eternals 2, Shang-Chi 2, and Doctor Strange 3 have added to the Marvel Studios production calendar. So there also looks like a Shang-Chi 2 is coming as well. And that's I wonder, awesome, because of the 10 rings and that kind of stuff, what that's going to play in the Multiverse Saga. It's also rumored that multiple Kang variants will reportedly appear in Shang-Chi 2 as well.
Really?
Yep.
Maybe Mr. Griffin or something like that, maybe?
Yeah. Simu Liu also had a quote, who plays Shang-Chi. I'm such a big fan of both characters and the performers that play them, so any collaboration is an opportunity for me to work alongside someone who, in their own way, is breaking barriers at the very top of their game. I think that's what excites me the most as a performer and also a fan. And who knows, they might see something sooner than you think. So it sounds like Shang-Chi might pop up anytime now in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Do you know what? Thinking about this, I'd quite like to see. There was a rumor a little while ago, a few years ago, that we was going to see more sort of team up movies, and I mean small team up movies, like a pair of people. And I think we kind of did get that with Ragnarok, didn't we, with Hulk and Thor? And I guess that was around about the same time as Civil War, but I don't think you can really count that one. That was more of an ensemble type movie. There was a lot of characters in that. But I'd quite like to see a few more of those things happening where there was small team ups going on. Two or three characters.
Like Shang-Chi show up in New World Order, for example.
Mm-hmm.
To fight alongside Cap.
Yeah, or the whole movie. Sorry, Alex, 1 second. Or the whole movie was just literally about Shang-Chi and I don't know, anybody, just one other person. Do you know what I mean? It was just a movie about those two, hooking up. I don't know.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it'd be really awesome to see like a mystical thing explored with Doctor Strange and Shang-Chi, because like if they did something with like the Great Protector and the mystical cities and Doctor Strange and all that kind of stuff, you would kind of have like almost two mythos kind of blend a little bit there.
You know what would be a prime candidate if he showed up this year? The Marvels. Because remember, Carol's in the post-credit scene, the beacon, she had to go off somewhere, the whole Bengal thing with Carol, maybe the Bengal and the rings are tied together somewhere, and we see Shang-Chi pop up in the Marvels.
Yeah, that could happen. Yeah, very true. But I mean, that's a good example, though, of what I'm talking about there, I suppose. You've got Captain Marvel, you've got Photon or Spectre or whatever she's going to call herself, and obviously Miss Marvel. That's kind of what I mean.
Yeah.
Other than having so many projects, just have one project with 2 or 3 characters involved. Yeah.
We also know that he has ties to San Fran, where Scott Lang and Hope and them are, so he could show up. I'm surprised he didn't. No mention of him in Quantumania, but maybe he shows somewhere else. So, from the chat here, I love to see the spy side of Shang-Chi, but it seems more like the Iron Fist side of things for him in the MCU. So
yeah, that whole spy side of Shang-Chi is quite interesting with like the British spies that were involved. But I was reading, we were talking to Matt and Steve Bird last week, and we were saying about that Silver Age of comics. And I've read some of that Shang-Chi stuff, some of that older Shang-Chi stuff, and good God, it'd need an update. it would need an update. It's awfully offensive.
Venom 3, Tom Hardy confirms movie is in pre-production via his Instagram. So, Venom 3, the train is on the tracks.
I wonder whether they're going to go down the King in Black route.
They could, because they kind of teased that with the whole...
I bet they do.
Yeah, hive mentality that Venom was talking about at the end of the last movie, so...
I bet they do. I bet it'd be... I kind of don't want them to, because I think it needs more time than just one movie, but I bet that's what happens.
I feel like you're gonna get another symbiote movie, just one symbiote that's just like the villain of this one. Like first it was Riot, then it's Carnage, then it'll be Shriek or something, and that'll be.
She was in the last movie.
Yeah.
What was the one I'm reading? I bought last weekend. We went away for the weekend. But I always take a book with me. If you go away, you never know if you have a little bit of dead time. And I didn't take the book that I had. So I bought a Venom story, and there was a Bedlam in it. So I haven't read much of it yet, but Bedlam seems cool.
From the chat here, probably Toxin, because they set up Toxin at the end too with the cop, and at the very end of that movie as well. So, there you go. There's options there. But yeah, hopefully they don't do the King in Black route.
Yeah, it needs more gravitas than one single movie, I think.
And I think you probably need Marvel as well to help with that, especially with the Necro Sword and what they've done already with Gore and and Hela and that kind of stuff. So you're probably gonna need Marvel and some kind of collaboration with that.
I would just hate to see that thrown in as like a quick little like 3-4 minutes part of a story in like a Venom movie. Like why just throw it in as just like a quick little like, hey,
could be
just add
huge.
that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you could totally do something a lot better with that. But I don't see Sony being like, hey, let's do it this way. They'll just totally just be like, hey, and then there's Null, and then by the way, then there's the symbiotes, and you're like, okay, like
Yeah.
okay.
What? Yeah, they touched on the planets, in the first movie, and then
This
they
is what I'm
touched on.
saying, though.
Yeah,
That's the
touched.
point.
They're building it up. They touched on the Hive stuff, so build up some more in the next movie. But from the chat here, Stephen Graham was the character in the last movie. Yep, that was the cop.
I like Stephen Graham as well. He's a good actor.
X-Men 97. The rumor is they'll be eyeing fall of 2023 release, and it seems that they hope to go for 4 seasons.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah, there hasn't been much talk on animated stuff, so I have no idea on X97 or what if they could drop at any time. And it sounds like X97 will be in the fall this year. There's that gap there, after the Marvels, I think, or before the Marvels. There's that gap, so that'd be a perfect time to do it. Speaking of the Marvels, according to studio insiders, the movie is because Marvel Studios wanted to give more time. Oh, this is for the delay. Wanted to give more time to post-production process for the Marvels, likely allowing for more time to improve upon the VFX of the film. So,
that's you know what? You'd rather them do that, wouldn't you?
yep. Plus, we have Spacey now because they changed things up, and so yeah. There's a new comic series coming out, Ultimate Invasion, from Jonathan Hickman and Brian Hitch. It's coming out in June. The series will feature elements from the Ultimate Marvel Universe, including a focus on the Maker and Miles Morales. So.
Hickman normally does good stuff.
Yeah, and that's you always find that when they bring around a new comic series, there's meaning in the characters that they're focusing on. And I know we said about who we'd like to be the villain of a Fantastic Four movie, and we said that Reed would make a great hero and a great villain, and bringing the Maker in, and it makes sense with Secret Wars and blah 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 blah. They did it with. They said they did it with Fantastic Four when they first announced a new Fantastic Four movie that they were like years ago. It was like, oh look, and Fantastic Four's back in the comics, by the way. So maybe that's something that we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Circling back to the animation stuff from the chat here, freshman year has gone scarily quiet. Yes, it has. So, Kang Dynasty, there's a lot here to unpack. Between Kang Dynasty and then later on when I get to Quantumania, there's a lot here to unpack, so buckle up. New rumor indicates that the Avengers Kang Dynasty director, Destin Daniel Cretton, has been keen on having Hulk, She-Hulk, and Moon Knight as part of the lineup of the new Avengers. Additionally, Marvel Studios, one above all, Kevin Feige would like Charlie Cox's Daredevil to join the lineup, though he may be willing to wait until Avengers Secret Wars to have him earn his spot. Right now, the lineup is looking like Captain America, Black Panther, Shang-Chi, Moon Knight, Spider-Man, and not one but 2 Hulks, meaning Banner and Walter's Hulks in the movie. And that makes sense why they're trying to fast track Spider-Man if they're going to bring him back into the lineup of the Avengers, because they need some kind of story there to bridge, between No Way Home and all of a sudden, hey guys, what's going on? I've been here the whole time, type thing. So that's interesting.
No plan to use Thor, huh? Or even to think about it.
Not so far. But Jeff Loveness did confirm that Tenoch Huerta will return as Namor in the movie. He says, Namor man, I'm excited to write Namor.
I reckon Thor might do one of those sort of, turn up at the last minute kind of things. I'm not saying he'll win it for him, but
or a variant Thor.
Yeah.
Maybe we get like old
His
Rune
daughter?
King Thor or something from like another universe from the future or something like that. That just comes in at the last second, makes a big difference.
Like King Thor, when he's older and more wise. I wonder whether we're going to get, because if we get different Kang variants and all fighting on different levels, I wonder if we're going to get different Avengers teams. know, 3 or 4 different Avengers teams fighting 3 or 4 different Kangs.
For Thor, also, they can have his daughter Thorn being here and kind of a similar scene like we had in Next Avengers where, you know, he kind of visits her real quick and we see Thor then, but she's doing all the fighting, though. We can see that as well.
Yep.
Jeff Loveness on Jonathan Majors being heavily involved with shaping Kang. It's hard to even say. I think I'm in the jet lag stage of a press tour, but we're working on it. Destin Daniel Cretton is incredible. I've had conversation with Jonathan Majors about where he wants to take the character, so it's still very early days. We've got like 40 more movies to go before I get there, but we certainly got a plan. We're all really excited for the story that we're laying down, so now it's not just on me and my ADHD and my procrastination and all that. So hopefully Kevin doesn't read this. If he is, hey Kevin, I'm doing great. The pages are just flowing, man. Last, it'll be out next week. So,
Okay.
He also talked about
He
also talked about what's in store for King the Conqueror. I think they've already been killed by Kevin Feige for even taking this. I've been killed for even taking this interview, but we are in the process of figuring that out. I'm so far behind on my Avengers script, but I'll tell you when we got it figured out. We've got a plan, we've got a story, but the goal right now, without giving too much away, is to show the true versatility and passion that Jonathan Majors has. I truly feel like I'm the luckiest guy in the world because I get to write for the most exciting young actor that I've seen in a long, long time. And so the short answer is that I can't say anything, but the big answer is Kang is a Legion. So let's see what the Legion is like, and let's get a great character performances from the best actor around right now. And I have this feeling, remember the Aladdin movies when you had him do all the impressions, you know, with Aladdin? I feel like we're going to get a Jonathan Majors like that, doing different versions of Kang variants in a similar fashion, kind of like that.
I already had that that image in my head of Eddie Murphy when he does the is it the nutty
the clumps.
The Clump family.
Yes.
Yeah, the Clump family. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, already had the little clap. I already had that vision in my head. You know, especially when they're showing the in the post credit scene or the mid credit scene, Immortus and Ramal Tut and who we believe to be Scarlet Centurion. I already had that in my head. You know, that image of Eddie Murphy playing those 3 characters, and I know what you mean by Aladdin when he sort of does the different things. Yeah. Hopefully it won't be as cheesy as that.
Yeah. On characters we won't see, so Jeff Lennon also addressed that. Yeah, it's definitely a tricky thing, but much like when I took on this Ant-Man job, I can't really focus on that outside stuff. I've just got to lay down the bones of a good story, hopefully, and find the characters that I want to tell it. And then it becomes a game of ping pong with other people, like whoever comes on and does Fantastic Four or Blade. I'm probably not even going to use those characters, you know, but it all informs itself. So it sounds like Blade and Fantastic Four are not going to be in Kang Dynasty at all. So
when does that release? Kang Dynasty is before, isn't it?
Yep.
Fantastic Four.
Yep. Fantastic Four is in between King Dynasty and Secret Wars.
Which is so weird because it seems like they're just pushing Blade way on down the road, and they put him in Eternals, like talking to Dane Whitman. So it's like,
well, I wonder if they're going to keep him for more other things besides this piece, like other stories, like War by Night, that other side of Marvel instead. But go ahead, Andy.
Fantastic Four is before Kang Dynasty.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, February the 14th, 2025, and then Kang Dynasty is supposed to be May 2nd, 2025.
Okay. From the chat here, no Fantastic Four is very disappointing. And maybe this was before they changed the lineup, because I remember they've been changing the schedule with Marvel. So who knows? Or maybe he's throwing us off here, but
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it's changed again, though.
Yeah.
And we just don't know yet.
He also says that he is trying to write Kang as the protagonist of Avengers Kang Dynasty, saying secretly it's a Kang movie.
Kang movie.
So it sounds like the Avengers are going to be the villains?
Come on.
There you go, Andy.
I love that. Yes, I know. I love it. I love seeing that. I think that's so interesting. You know, it's such a different take on it, isn't it? You know, we see the hero winning all the time, and it's nice to see the villain doing something, or at least if he's not portrayed so much as a villain.
Which, just to throw an interesting little like curveball out there, I don't know if you guys remember when He Who Remains is talking. He's talking about Alioth was formed by like tears in universes and reality. Basically, sounds like incursions is what created Alioth.
Yep.
So it's like, you know, we know incursions are happening right now. So it's almost like one of those things where it's like, it's everybody going to be pointing the finger at who's the villain, who's you know, the hero, you know, almost, you know.
So I just had a thought here about this movie. What if the Kang Dynasty is basically the King the Conqueror defeating all the other kings and becoming the Conqueror? And basically, it's a prequel movie before we get to Secret Wars. Because if you think about it, because remember this Kang was the one, he even said the story of what the King he was like, that he was trying to save everyone and fix things by by conquering everybody else. What if that movie, the Kang Dynasty, is him just doing that, forming his dynasty, and at the end of it, we see him getting pushed off into the quantum realm that we saw in the beginning of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
See, I actually feel like Victor Timely, that little post-credit scene that we saw of him, he's actually the one that makes the technology that basically harnesses Alioth and is the one that makes the TVA, and it's named Time Variance Authority after Timely.
There you go.
He becomes He Who Remains, and then he eventually just sits there long enough, plays through the game until he breaks that cycle. Now a new cycle has begun, but it'll be exactly the same cycle as before, where eventually we'll end up with another He Who Remains sitting at the end, potentially.
Talking about Kang being the protagonist of his own movie, if you, I know Alex has read it, the Only Myself Left to Conquer, and he's the hero in that. You are cheering him on, like you want him to win, and then at the end when it just rolls round and you're like, okay, I get where this story's going. And that's why I was talking about the loops. I just love a loop. I think they're so interesting. But yeah, he's the hero of that.
That's why I think Loki is such a perfect character, is because his character is always caught in loops. So for him to be stuck in a time loop with the TVA, it's so perfect for him because it's so fitting for his character.
From the chat here, love the idea of Kang being the protagonist. And then I guess to my idea here, ooh, that's an interesting idea. I still think they could do that. They could basically go backwards to go forwards. You know, to kind of show us.
Although we was literally just talking about all the Avengers that are going to turn up in it.
Yeah.
So they probably won't. But they might show a little bit of it. Who knows?
Unless there are variants from other universes that were part of it that were trying to defeat him, and he wins. Thunderbolts news. Steven Yeun has cast in a significant role and will be integral to the MCU going forward. So that was earlier in the week. Later in the week, reportedly the role is Sentry. My question is, though, is how could Sentry be an integral role in the MCU going forward?
Well, let's get to your question in a minute, but I just can't see that casting myself. I love Stephen Yeun. I think he's great, and I really enjoyed him in The Walking Dead. I've not seen Nope, but I thought he was great in The Walking Dead, and he seems like a really good guy. But is he Sentry?
I don't think so. And I like what you said about, like, he would be a great Penance. I could see him as Penance, you know, like I could see him playing that character really well. I'm not really sure what they're doing with this. I feel like, you know, the Sentry is just going to be a hopped up super soldier, and he's going to be, that can fly. And it's going to be one of those situations where it's like, hey, we gave this one guy the one super soldier serum that's the most potent ever, and now he's just like he was on a leash for like 10 seconds, and now we can't control him anymore, and nobody can, and that's just going to be like, he's just going to be a problem throughout the future. But if he is Sentry again, how is he going to be an integral person going forward, right? You know, unless they're going to make him part of New World Order and, you know, the rumored Warworld Hulk movie, that kind of stuff, and they go to town on each other. But you know, and he's like the anti, or he's like the new Veronica in the MCU to battle on Hulks. What is he going to be? It's the Armor Wars thing. It's somebody else has a bigger gun now, so now we got to go out and build something bigger. So this is like where you're gonna probably have like somebody like the Sentry come about, and you're gonna have like people be like, oh, we need gamma monsters now to fight something like the Sentry, and you're gonna have people try and create those and other super soldier serums and stuff, you know,
so nuclear deterrent sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
unless this is like post multiverse saga and it's setting up things for like what's next, maybe a mutants. You know, maybe he's the mutants deterrent that they're going to use before they start getting the Sentinels and other things, maybe.
I feel like the mutants are going to end up being like the kind of Hail Mary here once like all the teams and everybody's got like kind of like villains and stuff everywhere, and all these threats have happened, the Blip, the Skrulls, all this kind of stuff. They're going to try and lean on mutants and be like, world governments around the world in the MCU be like, hey, we need to take these mutants hostage, learn how to weaponize them, and then use them to fight incoming threats that might be like hostile towards us. Then that'll make that first like big threat to the mutant population in the MCU and cause them to start to be like persecuted and feared by the public.
Do you think they could make him, instead of him being Sentry, he could be the Norman Osborn type figure in this movie?
What, Stephen Young?
Mm-hmm.
And not actually playing Norman Osborn. That's not what you mean, is it?
Not playing him, but being, but no, not playing Norman. Not the whole, no, because of the
like
whole Spider-Man rights.
Buyer almost.
But he could be like a Norman Osborn type figure, like a new character
gotcha.
based on Norman Osborn in the MCU.
Right,
because I can see that being an integral part going forward in the MCU, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure who is that though. New character or someone that we already know that takes the role of Osborn, and if so, who's that?
Do you think he could be? Do you think he could be Tony Masters? I don't see that one either. I don't think he has a personality for it.
I don't think he has a personality for Sentry, to be honest. But
because I'm just saying that because remember in Black Widow it was a Taskmaster protocol.
Yeah,
and that means Tony Masters could be out there.
It could be. I think he could probably do that. Role. So look at his voice work in Invincible. Yeah, someone's just said there in a Molecule Man. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
That would make sense. That would make perfect sense
when it's integral to the role, to the MCU going forward. Yeah.
Or could it be the Beyonder? But why would the Beyonder show up in Thunderbolts? Yeah.
But Molecule Man might.
Yep, Molecule. That's a great shout out there from the chat.
Would we get the Molecule Man and the Beyonder in the MCU, you think? Since like both are kind of like very big parts of the Secret Wars stories. I mean,
I think one or the other.
Yeah, it has to be almost, I feel like,
Molecule Man makes sense. Everybody in the chat, great thinking. Okay. Across the Spider-Verse. Now, Tom Holland time. We talk about where Spider-Man could show up. Here's a rumor. According to this rumor, Tom Holland's Spider-Man may reportedly make a live-action appearance in Across the Spider-Verse. Jeff Snyder stated that part of the reason the animated sequel was delayed last year was to allow enough time for Tom Holland's scenes to be completed. According to the Insider, Miles Morales could end up going to live-action dimension in animated Miles in a live-action world in Across the Spider-Verse, where he would meet Holland's Peter Parker. That would be wild.
Cool.
If we saw that at the end of the movie. And I wonder if, they're saying that he's going to be an animated person in live action world. Could they actually pull him and be live action? And that's how we get Miles Morales in the MCU?
Yeah.
Or
is it going to be a bit Roger Rabbit?
Maybe. Yeah, that too as well. So
it's just weird because we've already seen the Prowler, the uncle in Homecoming. Right?
Yep, he was. Yep, that's who Charles Gambino played. Donald Glover played. Yep.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
very Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, from the chat there. But they didn't really. They just said his nephew. That's all they said. It could have been anybody else. They didn't specifically say Miles. Yes, I know his nephew is Miles, and that's a big part of it. But they didn't specify. But could this be a way that they pull him into the live action?
Maybe they.
I was gonna say, could this be the reason we're not seeing the freshman year stuff? Maybe they're just trying to axe that completely and just go to link that. Maybe
that could be too as well.
Maybe they'll link in Donald Glover. Maybe they'll link this in. Maybe it'll be like, wait a minute, what's his name?
Childish.
What's the uncle's name?
Oh, no. Aaron.
Oh,
Aaron. Isn't Aaron something?
Yeah, Uncle Aaron. Yeah, he's Aaron. Yeah. Maybe it'll be like, well, Uncle Aaron,
okay,
you're alive here, sort of thing.
I guess from the chat here, there's a deleted scene where he says Miles. So,
oh wow,
there goes my thought there on that one. Thank you. So, yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out when the Cross of Spider-Verse. I wonder if it's gonna be part 1 or part 2 because remember it's 2 parts.
I trust that side of Sony. what they're doing over there with that.
Mhm.
So I think that'd be really cool.
Yep,
Really looking forward to that movie.
They just keep staying on that path and not do anything else. Do all animated.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I think they've done enough like Spider-Man projects at this point that they've kind of figured out how to do a Spider-Man project. You know, like I mean, they've made a lot of Spider-Man movies. You know, like, and I mean, they've all been pretty decent. Let's be honest. You know, so.
Okay, Quantumania stuff. So buckle up here because there's a lot of stuff from Jeff Loveness here as well. Hold on a second before I do this. Maybe make him aware of the 616 miles for this. Yeah, that's a good point too.
Come back and be like, yeah, I'm gonna go find my version or my universe's version of Miles. You know,
there you go. That's good thinking there.
Yeah.
Quantumania time. Jeff Loveness, villain that was almost in the film. Oh man, yeah. I don't think it made it too far. I certainly like Psycho Man. I can't remember, it was so long ago. I mean, MODOK was always in the cards. I was a big proponent of MODOK as well. Peyton and I from day one. Peyton had the idea of making him Darren Cross, which was just incredible. I jumped on that. And that's interesting that he said Psycho Man because Jane mentioned Subatomica, which is where Psycho Man's from.
Mm-hmm.
So, there you go. He also talked about MODOK. Are you a Simpsons fan at all? Did you ever watch the episode Homer's Enemy with Frank Grimes and all that? I just thought there's such a Frank Grimes quality to MODOK in the way of, have you not seen it?
Yeah.
Scott Lang in 10 years, he's MODOK, missed so much. There are more of those jokes in the movie, but he didn't even know Scott was an Avenger. He doesn't know he time traveled twice with Captain America. He's in love with Hope. Hank Pym respects him. All this stuff has happened, and Darren is just this big, flat, floating head, or fat floating head, and to play the broken man quality of that, I thought was really fun. I believe it was Peyton Reed's idea to make Darren Cross into MODOK, but I ultimately jumped on that and pitched real hard on it. I think we find kind of a built that character together. Let me just say, the people who are divided, they're wrong. I will go to the mat for MODOK. I am so happy. And it was such a fight, and it was such a labor of love and passion and all that, just to get comedy balance of this guy. And hey, I'm a big comics guy. I'm sure you are too. We're on the internet. People got opinions. Those mother effers are wrong. I'm sorry you want to do a serious take on MODOK. I played that Avengers game on PS5. Good luck. Yeah, come back later. So he has a point there. You know, about MODOK, how he did MODOK in the movie. But hopefully this is the last of MODOK. Hopefully we see AIM. You know, AIM's been teased throughout the MCU a couple times. Hopefully we see an actual real MODOK in live action. Or not in live action, but outside the quantum realm. And this was just a thing for this movie.
I mean,
go on, Alex.
I was just going to say, I think we discussed before that movie came out that MODOK's always been kind of a joke as a character. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I feel like that's why Hulu did that really like kind of crappy comedy about MODOK, you know? Mm-hmm. And he's always just been kind of just like a punchline. He's like, yeah, he's like a fodder villain. It's like he's gonna get defeated at some point. Go get defeated, MODOK. Like you're just the front line, you know, like more or less.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I like that idea of the Frank Grimes and the Simpsons episode. I don't know, have you seen that episode, you guys? Where he's got everything. You know, he goes, "Hi, mate, how have you got this house? Like you're a bumbling idiot, and you know, you look at your beautiful wife, and you eat lobster for dinner." And it's like, I do get that now. Now thinking back on the movie, that's exactly what he was like, wasn't he? He was like, "How have you managed to do this? Look at this, you know. Look at me. I'm just this big floating head, and you're this Avenger, you know." Yeah, I don't know. I didn't mind him, but I think they could have still made him funny and still made him like that. But without, I don't know. I just didn't quite hit for me personally.
It's kind of cringy at times. MODOK was, you know.
Yeah, it's just
the whole stop being a Dick Darren thing.
The like dying as an Avenger thing, I thought was funny when he like reaches out and he starts rubbing him with his hand. I was like, dude, what is going on here? Like this is so strange. Like, you know, like
do you know what his whole character was just strange, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. It was just odd. It was just something odd about it. It just made you feel uneasy the whole time. The whole time he was on screen, uneasy.
Well, and Scott, and this is where I might be a little bit confused here, but Scott wasn't an Avenger when Cross went into the quantum realm, right? So how did Cross know that he was an Avenger?
Or no, of the Avengers.
Yeah, or no of the Avengers.
Yeah.
You
Good
know.
point.
He also addressed the mid-credit scene. The main theme to get across is that the King is many things, but he's not a liar. All the hints, threats, and warnings he was giving Scott in the middle of the movie turned out to be very true, and Ant-Man, the Wasp, and the whole family barely survived beating just one of these Kangs. So what the hell are the Avengers going to do against 1,000 Kangs? On the villain level, we saw how bad Jonathan Majors was as one Kang. So who was bad enough to beat him? Who's the Kublai Khan to the Genghis Khan of the Kang Dynasty? Who is the Caesar Augustus to the Julius Caesar of the Roman Empire? Who was clever and cunning enough to take out the dictator of the Kang Dynasty? So it's a bit of an exponential step up, and it's a way to show the Avengers are way over their head. They just don't know it yet. He also said we wanted to sort of give a tiny taste of the potential of what some of those Kang variants are, in brief nods to Pharaoh Ramatut, Scarlet Centurion, and Immortus. Right there, we have confirmation where there was speculation: was it Iron Lad? Was it Scarlet Centurion? Was it somebody else? Kid Immortus. There's confirmation. Scarlet Centurion is the third one in that scene.
Makes sense.
Yep.
I kept on calling him the High Kang Evolutionary because he looked like a mix between the High Evolutionary and Kang.
But it's funny though, because Scarlet Centurion is kind of the punchline too, all right? He's kind of the not like the
he's like a lackey. Almost,
yeah, he's like an inferior variant.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting that he's the third one of the three men of the council.
And he's always the one that sort of you will be me one day. Do you know what I mean? Like the other Kangs always say, "Oh, you're going to be me one day," so you've got to learn the ropes almost.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can tell that Immortus is like the oldest one of them all. He's got that old ancient Sith Lord vibe kind of going about it.
Sith Lord, yeah.
Yeah. So
he also talked about Loki season 2 in the post-credit scene, the second post-credit scene. Not direct writing. We had discussions with them, and there's an overarching theme. But no, that team had already been working on their stuff, and it will certainly come into play in future movies. But I wrote the mid-credit scene, and that's the tease, which it should be the post-credit scene, not the mid one, because it was the very last one. And that's a tease of the next Kang appearance. So I haven't written for Owen Wilson yet, but perhaps one day. So it sounds like that scene was not directly part of Loki season 2, and that setting up something in the future, possibly Secret Wars maybe, or something else. But it doesn't sound directly tied to season 2 of Loki.
mm-hmm.
Oh. I was wondering whether that was a scene from Loki season 2, or like whether it was specifically written for Quantumania, and it sounds like the latter is true.
Well, and based on that Loki season 2 trailer, it almost seems like he goes back into the system again as being like a TVA, like who's been incarcerated, like a TVA person who's been incarcerated and is getting ready to go back through the motions that he went through at the beginning of season 1. And in that like post-credit scene, he's talking to Mobius, like he's like, this is the guy we've been looking for this whole time. So it seems like there's maybe quite a bit of stuff that's happened between those 2 points.
So I wonder if we jump back to that at the end of Loki season 2, and that's what leads us into Secret Wars,
mm-hmm.
or maybe even Kang Dynasty.
Yeah. It almost seems like I was just gonna say it almost seems like Loki's going back in time, like looking for hints for something, trying to figure something out, almost,
Because Loki season 2 is this summer, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I like that though, Alex. He's almost like got to do detective work across time,
mm-hmm.
and work out how he's become so powerful, and where he's popped up throughout time. Is there's sort of a chase over the time and over the multiverses as to where he's gained his power, and what moment it was that Kang kind of took control.
Mm-hmm. Which it's funny, we saw Loki kind of doing that with the mortals, with like the DB Cooper stuff and stuff like throughout time, kind of messing with people and being like in history and people not knowing it was Loki the whole time. So it's like kind of the same thing can happen with
Kang. Yeah, he's got to go and find out where Kang was in all these times. Yeah.
Yep.
Which I think this is a big hint that we'll see Loki go from movie to TV to back to movie, possibly, because this sounds like that him and Owen Wilson will be possibly in Kang Dynasty or Secret Wars.
They've got to be. Surely, if he makes it out alive, which he always does, then he's got to be in Kang Dynasty, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He also addressed changing the ending of the movie. Yeah, I mean, certainly in these Marvel rooms and all that, you certainly game out all these stories and you pitch them out, you write them out, and you're trying to land the best puzzle piece because there's so many characters in the ensemble. Certainly, you see what people are saying online, but on paper, and then just in your heart, and as much as you can see that point about stranding Scott and Hope down there, stranding Scott and Hope down there, or whatever. At the end of the day, it's just repeating the same boat from the second movie. This just was a hurdle that you couldn't eventually get over, and then also it kind of affects Avengers in the same way of, well, then you're just going to do the same exact beat from Endgame as well, getting out of the quantum realm, and I don't think that would be a satisfying finale that people may think it would be. Which you didn't have to keep them down there stranded. They could get out, like that point where Cassie and Janet and Hank get out, present day, right? Mm-hmm. When Janet comes back to help Scott, when Hope comes back to help Scott defeat Kang, then they go through the door. They should have went in Kang Dynasty or somewhere else. That would have been a better ending. They still get out. So you don't have to be playing the same thing, but they're in a different part of the universe then. Mm-hmm. So you still could have done that.
And to say it's repeating the same thing that happened at the end of Ant-Man and Wasp isn't wrong, but they also repeated the same, which we've just found, well, not found out, but worked out tonight. They repeated the same thing that happened at the end of Ant-Man, with the villain getting shrunk down and disappeared into something, and then they go off and have a party.
It's like that episode of Rick and Morty with the microverse and then the miniverse inside of the microverse. It's like they shrunk MODOK down into the quantum realm, and then within the quantum realm is another realm they've shrunk, this version of Kang into now. So it's like
always reminds me of that scene in Animal House where Donald Sutherland he's talking to the guys and they're all stoned out of their minds, and he's saying, "Imagine if there was a universe on the end of your fingernail," and then the guys are like, just staring at their fingers.
Or like that locker that they open up at the end of Men in Black.
Yeah. The little cat's necklace or whatever that it wears.
Yeah.
It's got a whole universe in it too.
And they throw the marbles into the bag, don't they? And then there's the big aliens at the end playing, and the galaxy is in the marble, and then there's loads of marbles in a bag, and then you see huge aliens taking the marbles out and flicking marbles about. But then you've only got to look at your own world, like our world, for that. You look at ants and
everything's scaling.
Exactly, yeah.
He also addressed no major deaths, but certainly you go through all these permutations, and then at the end of the day, though, I don't want to kill Michael Douglas. At a certain point, it feels expected to kill someone in the third movie, and I actually felt the joy of this movie was having a bit of joyful adventure. Fellowship of the Ring, only one guy died. He kind of deserved it, but you're not killing off Pippin. Killing off Pippin and Return of the King would have just bummed everybody out. If Gimli gets his head ripped off by a troll, that's not going to be great. So,
yeah, but there's got to be stakes, isn't there? I think.
Yeah. He also addressed on what inspired Kang. I'm a deep comic book guy too. It sounds like you are as well. I took a lot, obviously, from Kang in the comics, but to me, the best version of this is Chris Claremont's Magneto. That is a man who is on a crusade, and your morality does not matter to him because he knows the deeper truth. You have not lived his life. You have not been through the things. There's a line that King says, when you can see time the way I do, you don't get to close your eyes. And there's also a guilt to it as well, because he says that time is broken. Janet challenges him and says, well, who broke it? And he says, I did. And that'll be something for Avengers or whatever. But he is broken. He's looking out the broken window of the multiverse and of all of his variants causing it. Him causing it and realizing, almost like America looking at the climate change. Oh boy, I think we left the AC on a little too long. I think we better do something about this. He's certainly in a crusade against himself, and his other selves didn't like that too much, so they got rid of him. So that's an interesting statement there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just makes me remember Jonathan Major's performance. It was very tragic, wasn't it? It was a really tragic performance, up until sort of the last third of the movie when he started becoming a bit aggressive. But the whole time he was talking to Janet, he was very, had that like I say, tragedy about him, didn't he?
Yep.
He had a sort of charismatic nature to him at first, and it was like almost like he was like trying to work towards common goals with her until she realized that he really wasn't, and
But I suppose actually you're absolutely right. He was very charismatic, then he was very tragic, and then he was very aggressive. It was sort of like, I'm going to be charismatic until I get what I want. Then when she finds me out, I'm going to try and not necessarily get the sympathy vote, but go down that route. And then when people still aren't listening, that's when I'm going to get angry.
But it's one of those interesting scenarios where it's like, had Janet would have let him die, none of that would have happened.
Yeah.
But she saved his life not knowing, and then created that monster too in the quantum realm. So
he also addressed leaning into Kang Dynasty. But certainly it's up in the air. But I think for these bloodthirsty fans, there's a little movie called Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. I think he'll bring the heat. So, yeah, I think Kang Dynasty is all cards on the table at that point. It's like Terminator Judgment Day or something like that.
Hopefully we're going to get left with that same feeling that we was left with after Infinity War.
Yep, exactly. This is. I think Kang Dynasty will be this saga's Infinity War, especially the ending.
I feel like at the end of Kang Dynasty, we're going to end up with the entire multiverse destroyed. And that's going to be that feeling of like at the end of Infinity War when the snap happened and everybody like loses. It's going to be that feeling of like all is lost kind of type of thing.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, that's the only way you can almost one up that in my mind.
And then Doom to the rescue.
Mm-hmm.
To play, to create one universe that's, going to work for everybody and keep everybody alive.
Battle World.
Peyton Reed also has some things to address about the movie. He said on Scott being chosen by Avengers to tell Thanos' story. As we see Scott at the beginning of Quantumania, he's sort of looking to the past. He's looking in the rearview mirror a little bit. He's actually written a book. He was chosen by the Avengers to write the official account of the battle against Thanos, and also tell the story about how he became a hero. So,
I wonder which Avengers chose him.
A good question.
Because Tony weren't around, Steve weren't around. Who was it that chose him to do it?
Who calls him Tic Tac? Anthony Mackie's. Yep.
Yeah.
The new captain did.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, Sam Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like this movie's not probably going to make $500 million. It's still hovering below that. But there's been a report of anonymous Marvel Studios insider on the movie. Marvel takes something away from the movie, including Black Panther, including Avengers. I can say we're incredibly proud of the film. Jonathan Majors does a fantastic job as Kang. It's the movie we want to make. Box office is what it is, but it's not going to stop people from going back to the theaters. So.
Yeah, I mean, how much did it cost to make? $200 million? Something like that, I should imagine.
Yeah.
And if it's going to make $4.5 million, it's not bad. Not bad return.
It's in the fours now, I think, isn't it?
Is it?
Or some threes?
I think it was like $379 last I checked, or something like yesterday or something.
So
yeah, it's profitable, and it'll probably make $450 million, which isn't too shabby. I mean, I was just my closest cinema complex is a Cineworld, and Cineworld has closed down in America, didn't it, last year? And they've just announced bankruptcy, and they're going to close down over here as well. So lots of cinemas are closing down. So not only are people not going for whatever reason, maybe because it hasn't recovered from COVID, or there's not so many cinemas to go to. But having said that, there have been a few big box office hits so far this year, haven't there? Avatar.
Top Gun, look at No Way Home. I mean, that came out post COVID, and that made $2 billion. I mean,
that was effectively a sort of, it was a multiverse movie almost, wasn't it, as well?
Mm-hmm. And I honestly feel like for this Ant-Man movie, I think the first one made over $500 million. The second one made like over $600 million. Like, it's kind of scary to not, clear that as a third film in the trilogy,
But do you almost wonder, since we are having theater closings and the theater landscape is changing, that if they almost go back to do something like they did with Black Widow and do a simultaneous Disney Plus release for a premium fee. You know, not like double the price what they did for Black Widow for you to watch in the comfort of your own home. I wonder if that's going to come back around at some point.
Yeah, I think you might be right. To be totally honest, I do think you might be right. They might end up going down that route.
Like $100, you can get it early for $100 in your on Disney Plus.
And the issue is they almost have to put a project or a movie on Disney Plus within a certain amount of time after a movie releases, because if they don't, then it might connect to the previous one that just came out. So it's like every 3 months, like if it's 3 months past the project's release, it's almost got to be on, Disney
That's a good
Plus.
point.
And that could be also why they change the schedule too, while they're stretching things out too, because maybe they want to extend the movie theater life as well.
Yeah, and I wonder because they are. I mean, how long it was? Black Panther wasn't long. It was only a couple of months, wasn't it? And it was out on Disney Plus.
90 days, maybe.
Yeah.
Wow, really?
Like yeah.
So
I'm trying to think. Yeah.
I think it came out in November, and it was on Disney Plus like the first week of February or something.
So not even 90 days.
Right. That's right.
It's like 45 days.
Yeah. So I wonder whether if you went to see it once at the cinema, on opening week, and then you thought that was a good movie, I'd like to go back and see that again. I'd like to see that again. And then you kind of went, oh, hold on, it's going to be out on Disney Plus in 8 weeks. I'll just wait. And then you don't go back to the movie, the center again. And the reason it comes out that quickly is because what you just said, Alex, it might actually connect to the next show, which is going to be on Disney Plus. So they need to release it on Disney Plus before that show comes out. Yeah.
And I mean, plus the other side of that is even if it doesn't connect, Marvel wants you to think that it does connect. So they want to put it on there so that way you'll go and watch that before you go and watch that one. Because like the whole idea is this is a completely interconnected universe. Everything connects. So you should go and watch the last project too,
Yeah. So I wonder whether that's causing some sort of disparity in those figures, people not going back to the cinema because they know that it's going to be on Disney Plus very shortly. I mean, it's not like the old days where those films used to come out on the old days when it used to come out on DVD or video even before then, or Blu-ray or whatever. When it was like a year later, wasn't it almost? Now you're talking 2 months and they're out on a streaming service that millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people have got.
Next thing, Disney Plus will be cracking down on password sharing or something like that. That'll be happening here soon.
Elizabeth Olsen addressed her return as Scarlet Witch. She said, "Well, honestly, if I were to tell you exactly what I would want, excuse me, I think I would be spoiling something, because Kevin Feige generally asks us what we want to do with the character, and then he does it. So I don't know if I can share." But I just want to come back. So
what she wants is what Feige's done, by the sounds of it.
Or is doing,
Or he's doing, because if she shares it, if she tells you what she wants, then she'll be spoiling something, which means that it's happening.
Yep.
So I wonder what she wants.
I guess that return, her own movie, there's hints of a solo project, is she going to show up in Vision Quest or, somewhere else? So Armor Wars, Tony called her a nuke. In Civil War. So, I forgot to mention one thing back in my notes about Across the Spider-Verse. Deadpool actor Karan Soni, who plays Dopinder, has reportedly been cast as the voice of Spider-Man India in the
DP.
film. Yep.
Nice. Yeah,
I thought you were about to say he was going to be in Deadpool 3. I was about to be so excited. I was like, dude, that's awesome.
There's no news on that one yet. But speaking of Deadpool 3. Hugh Jackman has described the role as a dual role hunting multiple Wolverine variants in Deadpool 3. So
nice. He's going to do his Eddie Murphy impression now.
Yep.
Different variants of Wolverine.
I wonder if I'll finally see the proper suit in a film.
Which, I mean, we kind of saw that a little bit in Logan too, because he was fighting another version of himself in Logan. Yeah. So it kind of sort of picks up from that, even though I know it's separate, but I mean, it's sort of kind of similar, I guess,
That was more of a clone, though, not a variant.
Yeah, but I mean, it's similar-ish, you know,
true.
like,
I wonder if he's going to end up fighting himself. I wonder if him and Deadpool hook up, like a version of him hook up, and they go to different universes, and then he's fighting his own like different variants of stealth. That'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Also for you, Andy, filming will be in London and Vancouver.
Cool.
Filming will start in May in London and will be in Vancouver in the fall.
Cool. I should imagine that'll be in Pinewood or somewhere over in the north or west. Wicked. Very good.
Moving on to New World Order. We're almost done here. I know a lot of news today, but we're like 2 weeks of news here. So we're almost there, home stretch. Anthony Mackie on script security. Like today, I'll show you the email. I got my script today. Haven't read it. Haven't opened it. I haven't got my passcode to the website that lets you go to the website. We literally got a passcode to a website that gives the location to meet the person to sign, to sit with a computer and read our script. They don't trust nobody, and it's always like some 21-year-old intern, and he just hates you. You know, he's sitting there eating Cheetos, and he's like, read faster, you know. And I'm like, I'm dyslexic, and he's like, I don't care. Like, it's a whole thing. So that's how they're going to security now with the scripts of these movies.
Wow.
Good. I hate script leaks.
Yeah.
I really dislike script leaks. I dislike bootleg trailers and those kind of, those sort of dodgy angle things from a Comic Con. I think they just take so much of the magic out of it. That's not what I mean, but the suspense. I don't know, but I just don't like them.
Yeah, I agree. According to Midgard Times, Captain America: New World Order begins principal photography in March 27, 2023, so this month. It is expected to wrap production after 116 days on July 21st, 2023. Filming will take place at Trilla Studios in Atlanta, and the production will take place under Change Up Productions, LLC. The production will take place parallel to Agatha: Coven of Chaos, Daredevil Born Again, Wonder Man, Deadpool 3, Blade, and Thunderbolts. So, a lot of irons in the fire right now with Marvel, even though we won't see some of these projects until 2024 and 2025.
Yeah.
I think they might sort of double down though on filming, because they kind of maybe use a location or a studio, and they kind of take that whole studio. You see that a lot in construction, don't you? Where you'll go down a road, and it'll be the same company doing the driveway on 10 different houses down that road, and it's because they can take all their stuff from that one road and just use it all in one go, and they won't be anywhere else, and then they'll just go to another road and do stuff in another road. And that's probably the same as this. Marvel go, right, we're going to hire out Pinewood Studios, for example, and they'll just record everything there, and they've got all their guys there, all their stuff there, and then they go from that point.
It's also easier too that if you have any characters crossing over to multiple projects, they're already there. No worry about scheduling, that kind of stuff, or delays from scheduling. So
that's right. Yeah.
Madam Web, and this has been kind of rumored for a while, but Sydney Sweeney is reportedly going to be playing Spider-Woman Julia Carpenter. And the more stuff about this was saying that it sounds like Olivia Wilde's project is still in the works, and that's going to be Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman for her project. Because this news specifically stated it's not Jessica Drew. Olivia Wilde is still working on that project, from what I was reading about this news. So.
That's somebody I'm really excited to see, Jessica Drew. Mm-hmm. She's probably one of the last characters that's left that I'm really excited to see. I think she's a great character. I've always been speaking about The Walking Dead a little bit tonight, but I've always fancied Lauren Cohen to play Jessica Drew, the girl who plays Maggie.
That'd be awesome.
She'd
do a good job.
I think she'd just do a really good job. I think she looks the part. She's got that nice sort of pretty look about her, but she can be, hard as nails as well and get down to business when she needs to. She's got that kind of authority about her as well. I think she'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
So I say the very best for last. So
go on in.
Universal rights are being discussed out there recently. And specifically, the rights around Hulk and Namor. Wall Street analyst states Disney can potentially acquire full rights back to Hulk and Namor as early as January 2024. Jason Bazinet from Wall Street says, following fiscal Q1 of 2023 results, we believe the company is less interested in a mass market DTC offering. This raises the possibility that Disney may sell its stake in Hulu. Because remember, they're part owners of Hulu's with Comcast. While Disney owns all Marvel IP, Universal has distribution rights to Hulk and Namor. As such, if Disney makes a Hulk or Namor film, Comcast can distribute the film on Peacock. If Hulu is sold, Disney may use this as an opportunity to secure these distribution rights back. Meaning, it sounds like they sell their stake in Hulu and then use that money to buy the distribution rights back from Universal. That way they don't have to worry about who distributes Hulk and Namor films. So
I mean, is their stake in Hulu worth potential projects of Hulk and Namor? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like the Hulk might be $1 billion. Like, you could do a World War Hulk movie, and that'd be like $1 billion.
That's $1 billion franchise right there.
Yeah, like you totally could. Namor is like one of the strongest characters from Phase 4, so I'm not saying it wouldn't, but I'm just saying, is selling Hulu worth that much for those two?
But if you think about it, though, are we still talking? Could you cut out there? I don't want to make sure. Are you done?
Me?
No, Alex.
I'm good.
Okay. What makes you think, though? Because think about recently, though. So remember the news a couple weeks back where they're not doing any more Marvel branding on Hulu? It sounds like this is already in motion for Hulu and Disney to have a divorce, right? It sounds like, it sounds like Disney already has one foot out the door with Hulu. And I wonder if that means that projects like Hitmonkey and MODOK and even the
Hellstrom,
Cloak and Dagger, if all those films will end up over on Disney Plus now. Also remember too is that the whole Hulu Disney Plus thing is only in North America. It seems I think not in North America, in US. It sounds like everywhere. It sounds like you have stars everywhere else in the world for that part of Disney Plus. So I wonder now that Disney has the whole parental content control there, they get rid of Hulu, they pull everything in Disney Plus, and then bring those rights back. I think that's probably their play going forward with this.
I think, like you said there about the whole World War Hulk story arc. I mean, there's 3 movies there easily. There's a trilogy of Hulk movies that you could play with that 100%.
And there'd be no better way to do a Hulk movie in the MCU than to do it with that, than to like officially get a very good Hulk movie the way that the MCU would want. Start with that.
And you could do a Namor film as well. Think about it. I know Andy mentioned that for the next Black Panther movie is do a siege type thing on Wakanda. They could do a joint. They could make that Namor film. Maybe they find out about Talokan and they do a siege on Talokan potentially, right? That could be a whole Namor film, or they could do all kinds of things with Namor, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree with Alex. I think, Namor, Tenoch Huerta was one of the standouts for me in Phase 4. To be honest, in the MCU of the last 10 years, to be totally honest. So, yeah, I'd pay to see a Namor movie for sure.
And I understand that we've had like an Incredible Hulk movie, but I just don't think it was as good as it could be if they did, something now,
Yep.
And I understand it's part of the MCU, but it's just that movie is so long ago and so much different than what the Hulk is now, in the MCU.
Because it's not just Hulk, it's She-Hulk and what other Hulk characters, right? There used to be that whole diagram of what characters they owned. But is it Abomination also? I think it's any Hulk related character they own. So Abomination, the leader, who else?
I think that circle is getting smaller now, though, and I think also just going back to the Hulk himself, I think he needs a bit of a rebranding, and I think maybe they're waiting for the rights to come back to them before they do that. They're almost like, we don't want to make a World War Hulk movie now because we can't distribute it, and we've got the Hulk like this, and we can't do it anyway. So we're just going to wait until we can turn the Hulk back, till we can find a reason to turn him back to World War Hulk, and then do that movie.
Here it is. So it looks like the Universal, because the whole diagram, there's a circle about a few characters. So the leader, She-Hulk, Abomination, General Ross, Betty Ross, and Hulk and Namor.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like in the MCU, I feel like the Hulk has kind of gotten the sideline, as a character, you know? And I feel like for him with projects and everything, I feel like She-Hulk has had more of a plan for her character than the Hulk ever has in the MCU. And the Hulk's been in so many projects. So I guess like for me, like it would just be nice to see him like not just like thrown in there to punch some things, like, you know, and give him a project that he can kind of stand out in. Let Bruce Banner kind of stand on his own a little bit. Let Mark Ruffalo get his own project, you know?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I sent you guys in the chat the old diagram. Of course, the Fox stuff is now back with Disney, but the Hulk and the Spider-Man stuff still, you know, aren't owned yet fully by Marvel. And then I guess that also probably mean his son as well, Scar also that we saw.
It's funny how in the MCU we've got all these like families forming. Like we have the Ant-Man family basically forming, the Hulk family, you know, kind of like Thor's got his daughter now. It's like everybody's getting their own little like group of people together, you know.
That's what happens, mates, if they grow up.
Well, I mean, like, I mean, like, but it's just like, you know, it's like Hulk's cousin, She-Hulk, and then his child, like Thor taking Gore's daughter, you know, like, so it just, you
know. Are we good?
Yeah, we are good now. That was a long episode. We're just under 2 hours.
But like you said, we've had a couple of weeks of news. Obviously, we had guests on last week, so we had some stuff to catch up on. And we obviously spent a good portion of the beginning of the show talking about our rebranding. We'll be back next week, fully rebranded. We're going to see all of that rebranding going on over all of our channels over the next couple of days. The groups, the pages, the new page will be live very, very shortly. Some exciting stuff coming up this year, hopefully. Any last words? Perfect. Jaren, where can they get us?
You can find us on, well, today it's Marvel Evolution in these places, but these will be updated with new branding. But you can find us on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch, on Facebook page and group, on Trovo, and on Instagram as well.
Awesome. Great job. It's been a pleasure, guys. We'll be back next week. Take care.
See you next time.
See you later.